Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Align podcast. I'm your host, Ruhi, and I'm so thrilled to finally bring this podcast to life. Through this podcast, I aim to have meaningful conversations that spark new perspectives, challenge the way we think, and help us grow into the best version of ourselves. In today's fast paced world, juggling work and personal life can feel overwhelming. But is it really about the balance, or is it about focusing on what truly matters? To explore this, we have a special guest with us today, someone whose insights and experiences will surely inspire us. Joining me today is Daniela Wolfe, also lovingly addressed as D by her friends. She has been a licensed master social worker for 27 years, focused on self care, stress management skills, parenting, and managing all the chaos of life. Dee, firstly, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. It's truly a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so
But
much.
before we dive into this amazing conversation, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience, to tell us a little bit about your journey and the work you do. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rosie. It's so great to be here today. Like you said, my name's Daniela Wolfe. My business is Best D Life, helping you find the bliss in your busy. In addition to having been a social worker for the last 27 years, so I'm clinically trained in all things mindfulness, self-care, stress management, coping skills. I'm also a mom of two. And while I teach and help other people kind of go from exhausted to empowered and overcome burnout and prevent burnout, some of this came not only from my professional background, but also from my own personal experience of having gone through my own burnout. About almost 20 years ago, I went through a divorce. So I was a single mom. My kids were 4 and 6 months old, and I was trying to do it all, be it all. I'm high achieving, and I wanted to, prove that I could handle things and wasn't great at asking for help. Didn't always prioritize myself on my to do list, and those types of things led me straight into burnout. And I found through starting super small and implementing simple strategies throughout my day, not only was I able to start changing things for myself and showing up better, but my kids got the benefits of it. My job got the benefits of it. Everyone around me did. And over time, people were coming to me and asking me what I was doing, sharing with me moments they took for themselves. And I realized I think we're all looking for that validation and permission that it's okay to put ourselves on our to-do list, to take care of ourselves and to practice daily self-care. And I do that in so many ways through daily movement in my morning. I have a morning routine. I have a nighttime routine where I'm very consistent in both areas. I, teach a very different kind of self-care. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. That's not just about spa days and massages and things like that. So I want to kind of turn the way we think about that. And yeah, I live in Buffalo, New York, and I love to be outside and ski and paddleboard. And yeah, that's a lot about me.
think I think that's wonderful, introduction you have spoken about yourself because when I was doing some homework about you coming on my podcast, I don't think I could get to see the other side of you. So thank you so much for letting us know about you. If we can kickstart the conversation, I would really want to start off with a simple question. Um, what inspired you to join this conversation on work-life balance?
Yeah, I love being able to help share what I know. To be able to start to move the needle for somebody else, to give them that they're not alone moment so that maybe they can hear that something that they're going through that they feel like they're the only ones. Oh my gosh, you're not the only one. We all have our hot mess moments. And I think giving ourselves the grace to just be human in all of this, to allow ourselves to not be perfect, to allow ourselves to kind of take the time for ourselves each day and be able to start to make that transformation for as many people as possible is part of why I love getting out here and speaking about it, because I think just to make that difference for one person means so much.
Thank you so much. I think you said it in a very simple way, and I'm pretty sure our listeners would definitely get inspired through all the conversation that I'm having with you today. So, for the benefit of our audience, can you break down in simple way, like about your work that you do
Mhm.
and how you have changed millions of lives through your work.
Yeah, and it is simple, but it's not always easy to kind of shift the way we're doing things. So the three areas that I focus on when it comes to helping people make this transformation have to do with your mindset, your time planning, and your self-care. Our mindset is kind of that lens that we see every event in throughout our day, whether we think things are working for us or against us, whether we think things are possible or if we're stuck in the same place we're at. So many times it's the stories we tell ourselves, those limiting beliefs, that negative piece of, well, I'm not good at this. I'll never be able to achieve this. This is for other people versus I'm not good at it yet. Or changing our shoulds into I have tos, I get tos, and things like that. Those simple mindset shifts can change how we approach our day, how we then prioritize our time. And that's that second piece of our time planning, of looking at what are you actually prioritizing on a day-to-day basis? Because so many times we make everything important and urgent, and then nothing is. And so we spend our whole day just running from task to task to task and ending up stressed and overwhelmed to the point of getting burnt out, which is then where that daily self-care throughout our day comes in. And when I talk about self-care, like I said, it's not something luxurious or fluffy, but it's a very practical kind of self-care. And it involves everything from how you eat, how you sleep, how you move, how you dress, how you decorate and organize your home, how you connect with others, how you think about money, as well as then those more traditional kinds of personal development like meditation, mindfulness, gratitude, journaling, those types of things. And so they all work together in order to help you make those transformations and stay recharged, energized, confident throughout your entire day.
Thank you so much. I think you definitely spoke about importance of having the mindset, how exactly one can shift the mindset to make sure that if they are not able to do certain tasks at this point, it's not about giving up, about knowing that probably they have to put in little more effort or change their focus so that they'll be able to achieve the task that they are looking at. I would definitely want to ask one question here for our listeners. Someone who is struggling with mindset shift, uh, what do you suggest for them to, how do they start? What is the starting point for them to think about the mindset shift?
Yeah, and that can be hard. We are in our own heads all the time. We're always having an ongoing conversation, and yet the tone of those conversations is not always as kind as maybe as if we were talking to a friend or a family member. If somebody else came to us with the same thoughts that we were having, with the same problems we were having, we would be so much kinder to them. We would get so much more grace. We would be so much more understanding than we are with ourselves. So the first part is kind of being aware of what those thoughts and statements are. And then whether it's writing them down, talking about them with somebody else and just kind of acknowledging, like, are they true? Why? Where do they come from? Sometimes these thoughts, they're just ingrained in us over time. You think of, like the only way to get ahead is to hustle hard. Where did we learn that from? Was that something we got from our parents, from society? And start to really break down some of those thoughts that we have kind of on repeat in our head and then come up with a new statement. So you might still have that other statement, oh, I have to hustle hard to get ahead, but now we have a new one. But I also know that taking some space and time to for myself will increase my productivity, my creativity, and my overall success. So now we're reframing that into a more positive statement, into something that aligns maybe more with how we want to be living our life by taking time for ourselves while still being productive, creative, and successful. And so we start to embrace that new mindset. You've heard of like positive mantras and affirmations. Part of what they're doing is we're rewiring our brain. So it's based in science where we're creating new neural pathways. And when we start to create those new neural pathways, it creates a different lens by how we experience things. I always like to say, when you think differently, you feel differently. And when you feel differently, you act differently. So by changing those thoughts, it's going to impact how we're feeling and then how we're acting on a day-to-day basis.
That's so true. And I think many a times we take so much of stress about not able to achieve certain tasks or the deliverables in our day-to-day life.
Mhm.
But After listening to you, I believe it's more about having that awareness about what kind of emotion that you're going through, address it, and also try to see where exactly it's stemming from.
Yeah.
Is it our limiting beliefs? Is it the surroundings that we are in, or how we have grown up in terms of what we can achieve in life? Times have changed, and people also look at different ways how we can achieve things. So, definitely understanding and having the awareness about what's happening at the moment is the key. So, thank you so much for that. Uh, Work life balance is a very commonly discussed topic, but it holds unique meaning for everyone. For me, it could be different. For you, the meaning could be altogether a different one. How would you personally define it?
Yeah. And I know a lot of people don't love the word balance when you talk about work-life balance because they automatically assume that means everything has to be equal. And I don't think that's the case at all. That's just not possible. Some days are going to be work heavy, some days might be more family heavy, but about finding that harmony and flow that works for you. But I definitely, when I use the term work-life balance, then, people are like, well, then what does that actually mean? So when I talk about balance, it's not about everything being equal, but it's actually how you adapt, how you pivot, how you have resilience, and then boundaries. And by having those four characteristics is where you find that balance because like I said, life's going to happen, unexpected things you're not planning on. But when you're able to adapt to them, when you're able to pivot and find new paths to still achieving the things you want to do, that resilience is how you bounce back. And I love to talk about mental fitness as how it relates to resilience. And then boundaries. I say that's my favorite B word because boundaries, they get a bad reputation. People see them as negative, as like a wall or an obstacle. Boundaries are so freeing to you and everybody else around you. You think of, if you went to your favorite coffee shop, but you never knew when they were open, and every time you showed up, they were closed, versus if they put their hours of when they're open on the window. And so you knew they were open Monday through Friday from 9 to 6 p.m. or something like that. That's their boundary. That's when they're available. That's when you can access them. And when we put those same boundaries in our lives, it's so freeing, not only for ourselves, because we don't feel that constant need to, whether it's check our email, respond to people, but it also lets everybody know when we're available. So it gets rid of any guilt. It gets rid of any stress or sense of expectation or obligation because you communicated what your boundaries are. As well as then when you're there, you're able to show up 100% because you know you have a boundary around your free time and your personal time that's not going to be compromised either. And so it just allows you to show up in a way that has so much more just kind of genuine presentness and freedom.
I think that that's one of the simplest example I have ever heard about boundaries, the coffee shop that you mentioned. Uh, that's a good learning for me. Speaking about boundaries, I don't believe, or rather, it's my belief that no, not everyone is good at setting boundaries.
Mhm.
So what's your suggestion for professionals, especially the working professionals, now that we work in hybrid environment? Many a times it does become an obligation to respond to emails, maybe after your shift or even before you start your shifts. uh, what is your suggestion for someone to how to get start with setting the boundaries at workplace?
Yeah. And definitely as a recovering people pleaser myself, it was, you want we attach a lot of expectations when we say yes to things. We assume maybe they're not going to like us if we say no, or that we're not going to get picked to be promoted or certain obligations or things like that. So again, that's where that mindset piece comes in of why do we say yes all the time? Why are we afraid to put boundaries in place? And breaking down those fears about boundaries is then that first step to starting to set some. Now, granted, it can be hard, to start off and be like, all right, next time my boss asks me something, I'm going to say no, So always start small. Any new habit, any new skill, start with something small and easy. Maybe it's just even the after work happy hour or coffee, like, hey, do you want to come today? No, thank you, but I appreciate you inviting me. Having some responses that help you feel better about it are what's going to make it easier. Oh, I would love to, not this time, but please invite me again next time. So again, it doesn't always have to be a no. Boundaries, a lot of times people assume are no's, but boundaries can be a yes, and letting people know when is a good time for you. Again, when are those available hours? Hey, your boss wants you to start a new project. Yes, that sounds fantastic. I'm not, I don't have some time in my schedule right now, but next week would be a great time for me to start. And so you're still able to say yes with boundaries, but definitely that communication piece is really, really important. And again, communicating even just your availability. So if an email comes in after hours, maybe to have an automatic outgoing email that says, thanks so much for reaching out. I can't wait to get back to you. This is when I'm available. And so again, it's already communicated, it's automatic. So it lets go of that guilt and expectations, but it allows you to then be available when you say you're going to be.
I'm definitely going to try one of the tips that you have suggested for maybe setting boundaries in some of the areas where I may not be so keen to participate at that moment. And I'm sure our audience will definitely would want to implement something that you have shared just now, just like I really felt that, these tips are really going to help me. Uh, I'm sure you must have been in the situation as well where you had to set the boundary. Can you just share any one instance where you really took a step back and said that, yes, I really need to set boundary.
Yeah, definitely. I think when it came to just saying yes to a lot of things, both personally and professionally, I definitely learned to first pause before I answered any question. That was always kind of the easiest step to put into place. Like, let me get back to you versus giving that automatic answer. Because again, it's hard when you're on the spot to think on the fly. And so I need that wait time in order to kind of craft an answer that I feel good about. So just even being able to take some space and say, that that sounds great. Let me get back to you allows you to then take that first step. And that was something I did for a while, as well as then like I said, taking a space even from social fun things. A lot of times people assume boundaries are only when it comes to things we don't want to do. Even the things we do want to do, we can have too much of a good thing. And so creating space in my day was always really important to me. So being comfortable with, I don't know if you've ever heard the term JOMO, the joy of missing out. People always think of FOMO, but being okay with not always being part of the parties, the outings, and things like that was an area that I set some boundaries. If I knew I was tired and respecting that time, that really helped me to feel like I was doing a good thing. And that helped strengthen then my comfort in translating that into some work areas as well.
That's a classic example that you shared. Thank you so much for that. Um, Here comes the next question that I always had at top of my mind is that do you really believe that achieving a perfect work-life balance is realistic, or is it more of a myth?
Mhm.
It's
No,
definitely, I have that question for myself.
yeah, I definitely believe it's possible. It just is about how you're choosing to define it. I think if your definition is rigid and flexible and has incredibly high, possibly unrealistic expectations, then of course it's not going to be achievable. But when you really break down what that balance looks like to you and can focus and prioritize one, two, at tops three goals that maybe are how you're going to define that balance, it becomes easier to achieve them and to really look at them. What are you looking at? Are you looking at time? Are you looking at work? Are you looking at financial freedom? And to be able to identify what you're going to focus your goal on and your energy is then how you can craft your day in a way that helps you meet those goals, not just always on one big, massive moment, but in little moments throughout every day. If connection is a goal of yours, then making sure whether it's emailing friends, having phone calls with people you want to talk to, or physically getting together with them, that's how you meet that connection goal versus thinking all of life has to be perfect. That's too big, too broad, and it's hard to measure.
Well, I think connections is something that you spoke, and it's quite relatable in today's work setup, where at least while I'm working at my office location, majority of the times I don't get to interact with people who earlier used to work from office. So yes, I do make it a point that I try to stay connected with them, maybe through emails or maybe WhatsApp, whatever is possible. So yeah, connection is very, very important. Um, so speaking of work-life balance, What do you think some of the most common misconceptions about work-life balance that you would like to debunk?
Yeah. I mentioned briefly, the one that where everything has to be equal, your time's going to be equally spent between work and home. I think that's an unrealistic thing. I think over the course of a week, that gives you a little bit broader opportunity to find some of that balance versus on a day-to-day basis. But definitely debunking that expectation of thinking everything's going to be equal. That's going to set you up for disappointment. Thinking that everything's going to be perfect, again, setting you up for disappointment, which is why I add that adapting and pivoting as my parts of how I define balance, because it's not about things being perfect or always going according to plan, but having that ease and breathing room in your day as you roll through life's ups and downs is where it kind of feels more comfortable. And I think that work-life balance too, it's not always going to be felt in one swift moment. When it comes to self-care, even people assume you're just going to instantly feel calm and collected. But when you integrate more self-care throughout your day, throughout your life, in general, when life happens, those unexpected moments, it has kind of helped you come into a space where you're able to not only pause, but then respond rather than react. Because when we're able to respond, we're more intentional and we're more grounded in our kind of values of how we want to show up versus reacting is a lot of times it's irrational. It's the things we don't mean to say, and it can be based on a lot of emotion versus kind of aligned, intentional planning. So I think, looking at work-life balance from a different lens, approaching it in a different way, and putting strategies in place so that you are kind of feeling more in tune with what your actual priorities are is where you're going to find some of that.
I really love the way you said responding instead of reacting. I think this is truly relatable because before the pandemic, the situation was different, and post-pandemic, majority of the times we were connecting remote with our peers. Some of the work that we used to do, there was a lot of time constraints. So, what pandemic has really taught me is to respond and not react. Pause for a while, as you called out. Think through before you respond to anything. It's absolutely okay to take some time and respond back. That way, you're also setting boundaries. Um, Speaking of setting boundaries, I think we spoke about it at work. Uh, what would you suggest uh, on setting boundaries at personal level?
I think it's very similar to how you would do it at work as far as taking that space before you answer any kind of invitation to say, hold on, let me check my calendar and get back to you, as well as then to be okay again with that joy of missing out and feel like you don't always have to say yes, or that boundary, doesn't have to be a negative. It can be a yes. And, I would love for us to get together. This month's kind of busy. Let's look at next month. And so saying yes, but communicating what kind of time frame works best for you. And that's part of why we integrate, looking at your time planning, because sometimes we don't even know where our time is going. We're not even aware of how we're spending our time to recognize what we need to be including throughout our day in order to take care of ourselves.
I really love the way you said JOMO, that is joy of missing out. Uh, how do you think we can be okay with joy of missing out? Because majority of the times it does happen that we always fear, we may be missing out on something that's happening, or not necessarily at work, but social media. How do we stay abreast about what's happening? But fear of missing out is something that's quite interesting topic to me. What do you suggest someone if they have to look at joy of missing?
Yeah. I think planning ahead so you have something else to look forward to sometimes can help with that. So you're not just focused on what's currently happening that you're missing, but also to reinforce why are you doing it? You're not saying no just to say no. You're saying no because you're exhausted maybe and you need some extra time at home. You've been busy and you haven't spent time with your kids and your family, and to kind of reinforce and affirm the priority that you're setting has a purpose, and it's obviously aligned with one of your values, and to kind of establish that you're not necessarily missing out, that you're totally invested and engaged in something that's just as important, if not more important to you, and that that's the priority. And when you're focused on your priority and aligned with your goals and values, you kind of don't even feel that missing out part.
That's wonderful. I think I would definitely say we really have to look forward to something and focus over there instead of just worrying about missing out what's happening around us.
Mhm.
I know you did speak about, work-life balance. Is it really achievable? But I would want to shift gears and want to understand, do you really think that uh, it's just even achievable, or should we aim for work-life integration instead?
Yeah. I honestly, I don't even get stuck on the word. That's the whole point of it. I think people look at balance. Well, no, it's work life harmony, it's work life integration, it's work life flow. It's about your life. And that involves work and free time ultimately. And so, whatever word people choose to use, I think it's possible. Like I said, I use the word balance because I don't define balance as everything being equal. And so my balance comes from adapting, pivoting, having resilience and boundaries. But I think it is all possible depending on how we choose to define it, the lens that we choose to approach our day, as well as then how we're integrating that pieces of our mindset, our intentional time planning, and that self care. Self care, I think it's, like I said, it's a bad rap. It's seen as a luxury or a nice to have, but it's as essential as eating and sleeping. Like, you can't eat on Sunday and think you're not going to be starving on Tuesday. You can't do self care for an hour on Saturday and think you're good for the week. Self care is kind of like the way we plug in our devices in our phone all the time. That's our self care. We need to be plugging in several times throughout our day, which is why there's so many options. And it can be done in as little as a 1 minute practice that you do a couple times a day. It could be 10 minutes, it could be 15 minutes. And there's just so many ways to integrate it when you look at it more intentionally. And that intention is where you start to get the benefits of lowering your cortisol levels, getting the dopamine hit of setting a goal and achieving it, and just those stress relieving benefits of the things you're doing.
Absolutely. I think you really touched upon the topic, that how it really impacts positively
Mhm.
onto your health. So, yeah, thanks for that. Let's talk about the hybrid setup. I know we discussed a bit about how to set boundaries at work, but uh, it's slightly different for those who work completely remote.
Yeah.
So, someone who is operating from office setup, it could be slightly different for them. And those working remote, they may find a bit challenge when it comes to setting boundaries.
Yeah.
So can you suggest some easy and doable tips for setting boundaries for those working in remote setup?
Yeah, absolutely. And this first one I already mentioned is to put an automatic outgoing email during your off hours so that your hours are communicated. And just like you would have set business hours if you physically went to work, you need to respect those same boundaries when you're working from home, because so many times it's easy to be like, oh, I'm just going to hop on my phone, I'm going to hop on my computer and do this. But we're not only doing ourselves a disservice, but we're teaching then the other people when they get that email from us at 9 o'clock at night that it's okay to kind of compromise that time that shouldn't be always available to everybody. So setting an outgoing email to communicate when your office hours are. Turning off notifications again during those off hours are going to be important, to not see that email and see the beginning and be like, oh, I should probably check that. If you don't even know it's there, out of sight, out of mind, it kind of helps, whether it's even if for your workstation, your computer. I remember during COVID, I had to physically, like, a lot of times we're set up in areas that we walk by and go past, whether you can physically move your computer to somewhere that you're not going to easily reach it during off hours, or maybe just even put like a tablecloth or something over it. So you don't see it and you aren't tempted to feel like you need to go and check something, is how you can start to set some of those simple boundaries. And then over time, they build and create a broader sense of kind of consistency on when your work hours are, when you're available and accessible, and other people will learn to kind of work with that as they know it.
So I'm pretty sure our audience who's listening to it, they definitely got some relatable tips for them to set boundaries while they're working remote. I definitely face this challenge of, responding to the emails or pings even after my working hours. But with conscious effort, yes, I wouldn't say that I have completely gotten rid of it, but definitely I'm doing a lot better now. So let's assume that if someone is listening and is struggling to find balance, what's the first step you would recommend them to take today?
Today, honestly, let's start a 1 minute self care practice. I think would be the easiest thing to do. And sometimes people underestimate the power of 1 minute, but it's really simple. You set a reminder on your phone to go off maybe 1 to 4 times a day. So you just set a reminder to go off. And then after that reminder goes off, you set a timer for 1 minute. And during that 1 minute, I don't want you to check an email. I don't want you to respond to a text. I don't want you to throw a load of laundry in, but I just want you to sit for 1 minute. Maybe you could do a breathing exercise. There's like box breathing exercises where you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4. Maybe for 1 minute, you're just going to shrug your shoulders up and down, drink some water, and hydrate. But just that 1 minute, and you'd be surprised at how long a minute can feel when you're not multitasking or doing anything else. Will physiologically start to lower again those cortisol levels, lower that stress levels, lower your heart rate. And those, by doing that then consistently over time, like I said, even like 5 times, 1 minute, 5 times throughout your day, now you get the dopamine hit because you set a goal and you achieved it. You have a 5 minute self-care practice. And as you start to do that more consistently, you might be like, you know what? I got 2 minutes right now. And then you can do that for 2 minutes. Maybe you go outside, get some sunshine, some vitamin D for just that 1 minute, even. But just kind of focusing on yourself for that minute starts to move the needle. This isn't, like I said, an instant, like, poof, I feel 100% better. But that consistency of doing 1 minute 5 times a day, doing that 5 to 7 days a week, now you're starting to build the practice that keeps you in that recharged, energized, as well as confident state so that you're able to pause, you're able to respond rather than react, you're able to show up in a way that's going to help yourself and everybody else around you. Oopsie, I don't hear you. I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 1 minute strategy, definitely, it's going to help a lot of people who are listening to this podcast right now. Dedicate 1 minute to yourself in the entire day. And it's all about being consistent, like you called out. 4 times in a day, if you're dedicating 4 minutes to yourself,
Mhm.
you would definitely see the difference. If not immediately, but yes, down the line, you would definitely see some difference in it.
Yes.
Um, all right. So, for our listeners, if you could leave our audience with just one key takeaway about work life balance, what would it?
Give yourself grace. Oh my gosh, none of us are perfect. It's progress over perfection. And to just allow the fact that some days are going to be better than others. I've been doing this for years and I still have my hot mess moments where I'm just not 100%, but I'm able to come back quicker. I'm able to reset. I'm able to reflect in a way that, okay, that wasn't my best moment, but now I'm going to go forward. And so just give yourself the grace as you're going through this process. It's called a practice because it doesn't just happen overnight. It takes time and consistently and continually doing it in order to help.
I think that's very well said. Many a times we are kind to others, but we forget to be kinder to ourselves. So, being kind to ourselves and embracing ourselves is the key. Uh, for our listeners, where can they connect with you or learn more about your work?
Absolutely. So my website is bestdlife.com. There you'll have access to blog posts, my podcast. I have a book that's available on Amazon that shares all of these tips and more. It's a practical guide to help walk you through all of that. I'm also on social media. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, as well as even Pinterest at Best D Life. And yeah, I would love to, hear your comments, your questions, and how I can help support you on your own journey.
Thank you so much. I believe our listeners are keen to know more about you. So, definitely in the description of this episode, I'll leave all the links and resources that they can reach out to you. And with that, we are at the end of this episode. Thank you, Dee, so much for sharing such thoughtful perspectives. And trust me, your insights have been truly inspiring. And I'm confident that our audience will find them incredibly helpful. Thank you once again for being here.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much I did listening to you and learning a lot of new things when it comes to work-life balance.
Thank you so much, Ruby. I appreciate it.
And to all of you tuning in, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might find it helpful. As I said, I'll include all the links and resources from today's conversation in the episode description. So please be sure to check them out. Until next time, take care and remember balance isn't about perfection, it's about making choices that align with the life you want to create. See you all in the next episode. Thank you so much.
Bye.